Welcome to the House of Truth. Last week we talked about the wise household and how in summary, the core, perhaps the key takeaway is this: the wise household values love and peace and quiet above money and everything else. Now, and this week we're continuing. We're continuing as we continue with our wisdom. We're kind of wrapping up our section, our segment about our section about wisdom in relationships, and we're going to talk about wisdom with people in general. But it ties into how to extend that same concept beyond your household to people in general. You're wanting to build relationships that are based on love, peace, and love and peace and unity. So let's begin. We're going to begin with we're going to begin here in Psalms 133, all three verses of the first of this psalm, or Telahim if you prefer to use the Hebrew word. Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. It is like the precious ointment upon the head that ran down upon the beard, even Aaron's beard that went down to the skirts of his garments. As the dew of Hermon, as the dew that descended upon the mountains of Zion, for there the Lord commanded the blessing, even life forevermore. So notice how good. I mean, this is what you really want. You want brethren, and remember in Hebrew and Greek both. If there's a group a group that's mixed gender, you use the masculine. So it wouldn't be limited to just men, okay? But yes, you want people who are family or like family to dwell together in unity. And it's good and pleasant. And I'm going to explain these metaphors the psalmist is using. That for those who aren't familiar, that precious ointment is the anointing oil that was poured upon Aaron. It had a very fragrant smell, and no one else could make anything like it in all of Israel. They're forbidden to make anything even similar with the same ingredients. So. So the anointing of God is there. The blessing of God is upon those who do this. And that blessing is like the dew. Now in Israel, as I showed before about the understanding of biblical timekeeping, during the summer, for a long period of over 100 days, there's no rain. And then in the fall, there's rain, and in the winter there's snow, and in the spring there's rain again. So the fall one's the early rain, the spring one's the latter rain. Well, so and there's a prayer cycle for the land of Israel, not just used by people in Israel, but also people outside of Israel, because it affects the agriculture. And you pray for dew in the summer because there is no rain. And what's that dew do? It brings life to the crops. Some crops, of course, require irrigation, but other ones, it's the main way. Some areas it's practically the only way they're going to get watered in the summer. This is particularly important for fruit trees and the like, and perhaps grass that cattle eat. So so again, that's the blessing of life. And that is what it's like when your brethren dwell together in unity. And me and my brothers I grew up with, our greatest times were just doing simple things, fishing or whatever. We were all together dwelling in unity. Or playing cards or something like that. It never was anything really expensive. But we were dwelling together in unity. That's what made it so great. Now, in Proverbs chapter 27, verse 17, We read it. We read some more about what we're really wanting in relationships with people. Iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the countenance of his friend. Now, if you don't know it, if you have two iron blades and you have nothing else, you don't have any whetstones, then you can still sharpen. You can sharpen them with each other. When you're sharpening, all you're trying to do is get rid of nicks and burrs. Perhaps can't be seen by the eye, but they affect the cutting ability. And it's the same way when two friends are together, they sharpen each other. They're sharpen their countenance. Let's just say let's say they're both software developers working together, or whatever. Let's just say that, but let's just go with that one. And and one of them has some skills that the other one don't have, and vice versa. But by talking to each other about these things, and they'll generate ideals, but between them they can go with an ideal that neither one of them would come up on their own. They're sharpening each other's countenance. Not just their appearance, but indeed they're improving each other's lives while together. Each one's improving the other one's life, just like each knife sharpens the other knife. So in Proverbs 27:19, we read this: as in water, face answers to face, so the heart of man to man. Now, this first part here, what it's talking about, is like a mirror. And ancient times, people often have an actual mirror. They find a clear reflecting pool of somewhere and look in there to see what their face look like. Well, it's the same way that when people are indwelling the air in unity and they're close friends, their hearts are their friend is reflecting their own heart back to them and back and forth, and it's binding their hearts together, so that they may be able to. You need to find a friend. Sometimes there's things people can't really express well in words, or they can only express in the people who understand, who've kind of been there, done that. Who understand, so that they gotta have someone with that right heart to understand them. But it benefits both of them. That's what we're going for. That's what we want in our relationships with people. Now, let's continue on. Now we're going to start looking at some things that we don't want to do. They're not wise. That's going to keep us from that good relationship of dwelling together in unity and building each other up. And we begin here in Proverbs chapter 3, verse 29 through 32. Devise not evil against your neighbor, seeing he dwells securely by you. Strive not with a man without cause, if he's done you no harm. Envy you not the oppressor, nor choose none of his ways. For the froward is an abomination to the Lord, but his secret is with the righteous. So let's just start here at the beginning. These are things, again, we don't want to do. You don't be devising evil against your neighbor. You're not going to dwell in unity with them and at peace with them if you're devising evil, particularly when they're dwelling securely by you. They can't dwell securely by next to you. Like, say, my next door neighbor, if he's concerned I'm coming over there and stealing his stuff out of his house when he's gone on vacation or something, or going to jump, go into his yard and and steal things or whatever, or maybe I start lusting after his wife, and and he's concerned I'm going to go to work and try to work and try to weasel my way in there with her. He can't dwell securely by me if I'm doing that. That's not going to bring peace and harmony and build a good relationship with him. You don't want to do that. And now notice it doesn't say you can never strive without a person, but don't strive with someone for no good reason. You only strive if they've done harm to you, or perhaps it's apparent that they intend to do harm. For example, if someone broke into your house with the intention of harm, someone broke into your house, and perhaps endangering your family, it's all right to fight with a guy and strive with him. In fact, till I was 3 years old, a total stranger, a man with a knife broke into our house, and my father fought him off. We don't even know who the guy was, but he left our house bleeding and running for his life. My dad wasn't fighting this guy without a cause. The guy came in to do us harm. But don't be picking fights with people. That's what this is saying. That's not how you get peace and harmony and dwell together in unity. And then don't envy the oppressor. I mean, yeah, someone may be doing you wrong or doing other people wrong, or maybe you just see what they have, because envy usually comes from that. Envy usually comes from they have something I don't have and I want it. Why can't I have what they have? Well, maybe they got that by oppressing people. I mean, I heard some people when I was younger who were Germans who said, "Yeah, we never had so good. We never had so good as those first few years when Hitler was in power." Lamenting that. Well, why they have it so good? Because if they turn to their Jewish neighbors, they got their Jewish neighbors' stuff. You know what a fool these people are. If they don't repent of this, God Almighty is gonna pour His wrath on them. Because the people who do these things we're talking about are an abomination to the Lord. But His secret is with the righteous. His secret, that wisdom we talked about before. Remember, the foundation of wisdom is the fear of the Lord, but the source of all wisdom is the Lord. Yahweh, Yahuwah, Yahweh, however you think it's pronounced, the Lord. He's the source of all wisdom, and that wisdom is hidden from the wicked, but He shares it with the righteous. So you do not want to be doing any of these things, because you're going to make yourself an abomination to the Lord. And you don't want that. And of course, obviously, you're not going to be peace and harmony with your neighbors if you're doing that either, or unity. Now, let's continue on with Proverbs 6:16 through 19. These 6 things does the Lord hate, yea, 7 are an abomination unto Him: a proud look, a lying tongue, hands that shed blood, a heart that devises wicked imaginations, feet that be swift and running to mischief, a false witness that speaks lies, and he that sows discord among brethren. Okay, Proverbs chapter 6, verse 16 through 19, we're reading here. Okay, now notice the Lord hates these things. They're an abomination to Him. A proud look, what's that? That's usually from someone thinking they're better than somebody else. Sometimes people accuse someone of that, and it's not true at all. But but looking that way, and it can be because they compare themselves to another person and say, well, I'm more intelligent, or I'm of a higher social class. I've got more money, more talent, whatever, and it may be true. But God gave them all those things. And when you're proud, when someone's proud, they have forgotten that. They're not acknowledging God as a source of it all, and acknowledging that God's blessed them with these things for His purposes. And they're not any better than the other person. All have sinned and fell short of the glory of God. We're all equal in that regard. We're all equal. God made all of us, and He can promote any of us He wants, and He can bring down any of us He wants to. But if you got this proud look and think you're and thinking you're just better than other people, it's not promoting unity among brothers. It's not going to promote you real friendships with real people. with people that are really going to be your friends. Of course, you're lying to people. They can't trust you if you lie. Hands that shed innocent blood. You're doing wickedness there, and if your heart's always imagining wicked imaginations, you may end up surrounded by some sort of like-minded criminals, but you're going to be an abomination to God, and you're not going to be able to trust them. Remember, the prodigal son, when he ran off, surrounded himself with people who were just like him. And when he ran out of money, so did he run out of friends because his friends were just like him. You don't want to be like that. And Swift are ready to, Swift. I mean, people are ready to run off and go commit some sort of mischief. Now, it doesn't have to be some sort of evil. It can just be mischief, just cause people some sort of trouble. They want to go. They want to go over there and they want to run off and make fun of some. Join another group of people making fun of somebody, or maybe they want to go. They think, well, I'm gonna go fork my neighbor's yard, or others are doing. I'm gonna get on the fun. Well, you being swift to do those things, it's something that God hates, the Lord hates, and it's an abomination to Him. And now you don't want, and you certainly have a false witness that speaks lies, bearing false witness against people. It will get found out, and it does not promote unity with your neighbors. And of course, lastly, he that sows discord among brethren. I mean, it's the very opposite of unity, what our goal is. You're trying to break up unity, perhaps not with your friends, but with someone else's, or for whatever reason. You don't want to be doing this. Again, these things are all an abomination to the Lord. They're things He hates. Don't be doing any of them. They're not promoting peace. They're not promoting peace and prosperity with your neighbor. In Proverbs 21:10, we read this: the soul of the wicked, chapter 21, verse 10. The soul of the wicked desires evil. His neighbor finds no favor in his eyes. I mean, first of all, the first problem is that he desires evil. He desires to do something wicked, evil, and particularly to his neighbor. And for that reason, his neighbor can't do anything right with him. And then it doesn't have to be a neighbor outside; it can be inside of a household. I mean, I watched me and my wife watched the show recently, where this guy favors one of his sons, favors the younger one, and the older one's always quote on him thin ice. He says, "I've done thin ice my whole life with you, Dad," because his father has this evil look towards him. And anyway, and the guy, the man ends up in a fire and gets rescued, and he thinks it's his younger son, and tells him what a great hero he was, except. And the younger son says, "I didn't do it, Dad. It wasn't me." And the older son speaks up and says, "Well, Dad, I'm the one who saved you." And the guy has nothing good to say to him. All that talk about being a hero and all that stuff, being how blessed I am to have you as my son, just shut down because he wouldn't find any favor in his eyes. And it's the same way. If your soul desires evil, you're always going to be looking for fault with people. Nothing they ever do is going to be good enough for you. And I will say, if you are doing that, what this verse would say is, if you're sitting there and you can't find favor with anyone, no one can find favor in your eyes, no one can ever do anything good enough, that's because your soul desires your soul. You have the soul of a wicked person that desires evil. Don't be doing these things if we want to get those great benefits of peace and harmony, unity, and the empowerment that comes from real friendships. Now we continue on in Proverbs chapter 10, verse 23. We read this: It is a sport for a fool to do mischief, but a man of understanding has wisdom. Now, a example of sport to do mischief would be someone pranking people, like perhaps in an office setting, even. And they're like, oh, they're all laughing. Oh, we were just funning with you or whatever. No, if you're out there pranking people, you're a fool, is what the Bible's saying. But man of understanding has wisdom. He ain't doing that. He ain't pranking people. He isn't causing other people trouble and laughing about it and saying, it was all in fun. Because it wasn't fun to the person they did it to. So a man of understanding has wisdom. It ain't going to do it. It just isn't going to do that. Continue on in Proverbs chapter 17, verse 11 through 12. We read this. An evil man seeks only rebellion. Therefore, a cruel messenger shall be sent against him. Let a bear robbed of her whelps meet a man rather than a fool in his folly. Now, this first part here, I can't think of anything more. I can't think of any better example than the Roman emperors. In a 50-year period, Rome had 99 emperors, and only one of them died of natural causes. They would seek rebellion, and as soon as they got in power, someone else did the same thing. And some of them died some pretty horrible ways. Some may have technically died in their sleep, but that's because someone put a wet pillow and held it over their face. Okay? You don't want, So this is not help people. And it's thing about a bear, or that's her cubs. You never will get between a she bear and her cubs. I mean, she won't just kill whoever she feels threatening her cubs and like she's gonna eat them or something. She will literally tear you from limb to limb. It's like she's making an example out of you. Well, if you go along and join these rebellions, like a lot of people join these rebellions and bring these guys into power, a lot of them died. I mean, they were also ended up torn up limb to limb, perhaps on the battlefield, or perhaps the rebellion failed for joining with this guy, drawn and quartered, something like that. I mean, this evil man. But in general, you don't want to join a fool in his foolishness. Like in my previous example, pranking. And one of those problems with pranking people is, I knew of a man. I think it was someone I knew, but we'll just say this. Anyway, this man was pranking this other guy all the time. Then one day, the other guy became his boss, got promoted. That guy, now suddenly the guy had been pranking was giving him the worst jobs every day. Okay, you don't know that person you're pranking, and usually it's some people think that aren't going to be able to are going to be able to prank them back and have repercussions on them or whatever. They're often going to do it. Someone they think's defenseless, but someone else may step in. God may raise them up above you to teach you a lesson. Well, it's the same thing if a fool is folly. You just don't want to get involved in that. They'll be like, oh, come on, join the fun. The fun has bad results in the end. The cool guys usually turn out to be the fool guys. You don't want to do that. In Proverbs 26, verse 18 through 19, we read this. As a madman who casts firebrands, arrows, and death, so is a man who sees his neighbor and says, am I not in sport? Meaning, I was just joking. I didn't mean it, saying something like that. But he deceived his neighbor. So, and he's just like someone who's out of their mind, firebrands be like grabbing a piece of wood's on fire and flinging it at someone or into their yard or something. Arrows and death, I mean, just someone who's causing destruction. That's what you're doing when you deceive your neighbor and you think you're just joking around. You're causing destruction. You may not literally throw firebrands, arrows, and death at him, but you are destroying your relationship with that person. You are destroying unity and harmony and peace and quiet and all those things we should be seeking after with our neighbors. And back to our previous verse, we saw about somebody's going like, is it not in sport, whatever. That's the mark of a fool. Remember, the heart of the wise is in the funeral home, but the heart of the fool is in the party house. They're always looking for a good time. And often it's someone else's expense. Don't do that. That destroys you from having peace and harmony with your neighbors. Now we're going to look at some things to do as well as not do. He that is slow to wrath is of great understanding. He that is hasty of spirit exalts folly. A sound heart is the life of the flesh, but envy the rottenness of the bones. Well, let's start at the beginning there. Look, if you're slow to get angry, you're not to say you can never get angry. Remember, Yeshua was angry at the money changer and threw him out of the temple. As one of my pastors put it once in a sermon, he was more than a little ticked off. Okay. How personal it was. He sat there trying to make that cord of whips, so he could drive them out. So not saying you can never, but it's saying get the facts first, and don't be hasty. Don't be getting angry quickly, and don't be jumping to conclusions. Because if you try to make the conclusion, come to a conclusion before you know all the facts, it's going to lead to foolish actions that are going to destroy peace and harmony, and you're going to regret later. So just don't do it. And the root of this and likewise, a sound heart. If your heart gives out, your whole body dies. The life of the flesh is in the blood, and your heart's what's circulating that blood, which is carrying oxygen. A little tidbit: the Hebrew word for oxygen and the word for life is the same word. So just a little thought there. Oxygen is in the blood, or life. It's the same thing. Well, however, envy can destroy your health. And again, what is envy? It's it is you thinking someone else got something they don't deserve, but you do. Or why do they get that and I don't get it? And yada yada yada. Instead of doing what the Bible says, which is if you have food, clothing, and shelter, being content. You're not just wanting. It comes ultimately from breaking the 10th commandment. You shall not covet anything after your neighbors. You've coveted something they got and you don't, and you're upset about it. And studies have shown that it can actually cause you bone cancer. You can let that get in there and just eat away, and it can actually damage your bones. Even have cancer. You want to avoid envy as much as you want to avoid bone cancer. If you find yourself envying somebody, go to God and start talking to him about it. Or go to a good friend and start talking about it, because it will destroy you. It'll certainly destroy your relationship with other people. Avoid it as like you would avoid bone cancer. Proverbs chapter 15, verse 18, we read this. A wrathful man stirs up strife, but he is slow to anger appeases strife. Okay, so notice a man that's angry is gonna bring up strife, fighting. He's gonna stir it up. He's ready to start a fight. But notice he is slow to anger is gonna appease that. He's gonna try to bring peace to the situation. He's gonna be a peacemaker. So we got, I mean, some of us like myself are probably not been tested, but I got the certain have the symptoms of being a carrier of the MAOA gene, the so-called warrior gene, which makes it easy for you to get angry in a moment's time. It's good on the battlefield. That's why it's called that. It's bad everywhere else. Okay, but you got to learn to control your temper. You've got to learn to be slow to strike, slow to anger. Because remember, slow to wrath. Slow to wrath. Wrath is acting on your anger, right? Slow to act on your anger till you find it. And you got to be slow to anger and looking to not make fights, get in fights, but looking for ways to avoid fights, to settle the situation peacefully without fighting. There may be some injustice done, and you may need to take some sort of step to correct it. But you're trying to appease that issue, fix the issue without actually getting into fights. In Proverbs 19, verse 11, chapter 19, verse 11, we read this: the discretion of a man defers his anger, as his glory to pass over transgression. I mean, look, if you defer anger, doesn't mean you never act on it. Defer, what's it mean? Put off, hold it to later. Do it now. So it's discretion, and you need to remember you're supposed remember we're supposed to have sound judgment, have sound you we're supposed to be sober judgment, meaning we make decisions based on the facts, the evidence, and the circumstances. So if you're going along and talking to someone or investigating something, and you start feeling yourself getting angry, and that can cloud your judgment, what you need to do is step back. You may now what you don't want to do is just walk away. What you want to tell them is, I need some time to process this. Let's resume this and give a specific time, not just later and it just never occurs. I need an hour to process this. Can we resume in an hour? Or would tomorrow be okay? Something, but give them a specific time. Let them know you're not just trying to not ignore the issue, and you are going to do it and keep your commitment. That's deferring your anger. If I defer a loan, it doesn't mean I don't repay the loan. It means I get a period of not repaying it, then I get to go back, resume repaying it. Okay, I'm making payments. Or if it's due a certain day and someone defers it, I still have to pay it, but later. So this is what you want to do. That shows you have discretion. And so you want to be that wise man, a man that shows he has discretion by not making sure you don't make decisions in anger, avoid working for peaceful. If someone is angry, trying to work and find a way to come to a peaceful resolution first. Only acting if you're forced to take action, and you may be forced to. There's time for everything, but don't make a rash decision while you're angry. That does not help you. That is definitely a hindrance against dwelling together with your brothers in unity. What you do want to do is this other thing. It's your glory to pass over a transgression. Now, that doesn't mean ignore a wrong that's continuing to on-go, but it means like the model God himself has demonstrated with us. If we confess our sins, he's just to forgive them. Okay? But we have to confess. So this transgression is you're passing over it. You're passing over it like if they tell you, I did wrong, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do it again. And you're like, okay, it's like bygones be bygones and move on. And that does not mean you do not necessarily remember it. Remember Yeshua, Jesus told a parable about a king that owed a greatest sum of money to and asked for forgiveness of his loan. The king forgave him. Then the guy went out and found someone owed him just a few dollars and wouldn't forgive him, asked for forgiveness, wouldn't forgive him, put him in jail. And the king heard about it, and he said, didn't I forgive you all that debt, you wicked servant? And put the other guy in jail. But the guy who owed him a great debt in jail. So the king remembered the guy that owed him a debt. So it's not you never, but what you don't do is bring it back up. The king only brought it back up because the guy did not show his appreciation by doing unto others as the king had done unto him. Okay. But yeah, it's your glory. If someone's done you wrong and you forgive them and you let bygones be bygones, other people feel safe around you. Other people, I mean, America would say that they were the bigger man. You are lifted up in the eyes of other people if you do that. So you want to pass over a transgression when you can. Now in Proverbs chapter 17 through 26, we continue on. We're looking about what, well, we'll start here looking at what when other people do you wrong. Also to punish the just, again, chapter 17, verse 26. Also to punish the just is not good, nor to strike princes for equity. Yeah, if you go around punish people, the just, perhaps because of favoritism, it's not good. It's not going to work out. It's not going to promote peace and harmony. Then Aunt did this. She had two sons, and like the guy in the movie, the older one could do no wrong, could do no right, and the younger one could do no wrong. And sometimes the younger one would do something, and she was ready to lay in and blame the older one and blah blah blah, and, take it and punish him really. And the younger one said, "Mom, I'm the one who did it," and she still punished the older one. Says, "Wow, he would have done it. He hadn't influenced you to, or something, That wasn't good. He had, as soon as they got old enough, he was gone. Had no relationship with his mother. And probably wasn't very fun. He had a relationship with his father, but there's still lack of respect to his father that should have been there. I don't think it's disrespectful. I just meant his father hadn't earned it. His father had not stood up and stood up in his defense when he should have. He let this go on. And the whole situation wasn't good. But also what's not good is to strike those who rule those positions of authority to get even. You don't want to strike them to get even. And you might be thinking, well, they can't get away with this. I'm not saying they can. I'm not saying you should let them get away with it. But there's a right way to get away with it and a wrong way. And the wrong way is to take matters in your own hands and to strike them to get even. I mean, in this verse, it means literally, like hit them with your fist, okay? Because they can cause not just you problems, all kinds of problems to other people. I mean, they can to get back at you, make some law or rule or whatever that affects everyone around you. And everyone's going to be angry at you for doing it, okay? You don't want to strike them just for you to get even. Here's what you do instead. In Proverbs chapter 20, verse 22, we read this. Say not you, I'll recompense evil, but wait on the Lord, and he shall save you. Again, you're not letting them get away with nothing because they're not getting away with anything. You don't say, I'm going to pay them back. Pay, pay. I'm going to get payback. You don't say that. You hand them over to the Lord and you wait on Him. If they try to do something to you, He'll save you. He'll come along. He'll wreck their plans if you trust on Him and wait on Him. It's His promise right here. But you don't need to you don't need to repay them for the evil they've done to you. And I'm not saying they haven't done you evil. They did. That's the point of this. But you don't need to take matters in your own hands. Instead, hand them over to the Lord and let Him handle it. Here's what you are to do instead. Proverbs 25, verse 21 through 22. If your enemy be hungry, give him bread to eat. If he be thirsty, give him water to drink. For you shall keep coals of fire upon his head, and the Lord shall reward you. Now, that last part there, it's a metaphor. I mean, it means you're gonna make him ashamed, is what it means, and basically that when everyone sees how he treated you and how you treat him, I mean, not only did you show yourself to be the bigger man, you showed him to be the smaller man. And someone's like that, that's the last thing they want. They're often very concerned what other people think about them. But also, you're just going to make them feel shame inside. And sometimes when people have done this, people, not guaranteed, people are different, but some people will come to you and say, I'm sorry, I was a jerk, I did you wrong. And sometimes that can even lead to a friendship, which is our goal, to have peace. Maybe that whatever they were bugging about, they'll tell you, and you guys can resolve it and work out a peaceful solution. So your part is to do good to them, regardless of what they do with you. And if they continue, God will deal with them. And I can tell you from experience, no one can deal with them like God can. I had some boys I handed over. I handed over to God. Some of them repented. Thank God. I wish they all had. But some of them did not. And I guess can try to continue that behavior with other people, probably. One of them was trapped in his car. It caught on fire and he burned to death before the rescue anyone could get there to take him out of the car. The other one was out hunting and was shot in the gut, which is the worst place to get shot. It's the most painful way to get. It's the most painful area to get shot, particularly with perhaps shotgun pellets or whatever. He died after 3 or 4 agonizing, horrendously terrible hours, most of which he had no anesthesia because someone had to go find the paramedics who were out in the woods and get, and so on and so forth. It took them a while to get there if they could give him anything for the pain at all. They had done me wrong, and God dealt with them. And the thing was, I had nothing to do with it. I was 1,000 miles away when it occurred. But that's not my goal. I wish they had repented, okay? And that's what you're after. That's why you're feeding them this stuff. That's why you're doing this. You're trying to win them over, okay? You don't want them. You don't want them to suffer. You don't want them to die. You don't want them to have consequences. You want to be like God. We have earned His anger and wrath, but He showed mercy to us, and we need to be doing the same to other people and demonstrate in tangible ways. Now, if we ignore all the stuff I've said so far, here's what's going to happen. It tells in Proverbs 8, chapter 18, verse 19. A brother offended is hard to be won in a strong city. Their contentions are like the bars of a castle. Now, first, I want you to know Solomon's not saying it's impossible to win them back. It's just hard, really hard. Now, if you got a strong city, what do people have to do to win, to subdue that city usually? They have to siege it. In some cases, people have had to siege a city for years to get in there and break in. And sometimes they can't even do it. like in Hezekiah, where he cut the water, divert the water supply, hid it from outside, and diverted all in Jerusalem. And the people got there, found they didn't have any water, And eventually they had to give up. And Hezekiah's tunnel, one of the an archaeological, an engineering marvel, one of the greatest engineering marvels of the ancient world. They tunneled through a mountain, had to make even, and the tunnel's not even straight, and they met together in the middle, nonetheless. But anyways, it's hard to do it. And why? Because those tensions are like the bars of a castle. The bars are metal. They're stronger than the stone around them. They're stronger than they're stronger. Or you got some sort of wooden fort. They're stronger than wood, obviously. They're stronger than the stone that's holding them in place. And that's what's really causing the problem. They got some contention against you for some reason. And maybe it's justified because of all these things you've been doing. Now, this is not, I also want to say, this does not mean you should always try. If someone, it depends on why they're offended at you or not. You should be trying to win them back or not, particularly. I mean, you can only go, if people offend, Yeshua offended people, and he would not budge. He would not join. He said, if I agree with you, I'd be a liar. That's what I told him at one point. Okay. So we're not saying you should always, if someone's offended, it depends on why they're offended. Well, if they're offended because you are just acting like a jerk, and you actually did, I mean, you actually sinned against them, that wrong you did to them is like the bar is what's really going to make it so hard to win them back over. You got to deal with the root problem first, whatever it was. And it begins with humbling yourself before them and admitting and telling them, I did this to you, I shouldn't have, and I'm sorry. But I ain't going to do it by itself. That's where you start. Then you got to take action to correct the situation and gain their confidence and show them that you're never going to do that again. And it's a long process, like winning over, besieging a strong city. Takes years often. Okay, now in Matthew chapter 5, verse 23 through 24, we read about how important this is about getting things right with someone. If again, they're not offended at you for doing the will of God, they're offended at you for some other reason. So you said something you shouldn't have, except. Here's what Yeshua says. Therefore, if you bring your gift to the altar and you remember your brother has aught against you, leave your gift before the altar. Go your way. First be reconciled to your brother, then come and offer your gift. Again, this is Matthew chapter 5, the Sermon on the Mount, which contains the Sermon on the Mount, in verse 23 through 24. So, notice. So, what's that gift on the altar? Well, that's that's a gift to God, right? And that's and it's offering that gift is showing your appreciation to God, and it's about your relationship with God. But if your relationship with someone else has something against you, and we're talking about particularly where we're not talking about something or against you because you did what's right, like Daniel refusing to quit praying, or whatever, huh? But we're talking about they have something against you that's legitimate, right? Where you did them wrong, or you just didn't act wisely towards them and offended them unnecessarily. Yeshua says, go there and you need to be reconciled with them first. And why? Because God ain't going to accept your gift if you don't. There's no reason to give it. If you do not get things right with people, you cannot if you do not keep things right with people, you cannot have things right with God. So this is super important according to Yeshua, to get things right with people, particularly if you done them wrong, or maybe you did one of other things, you pranked them or whatever and caused them some sort of embarrassment or something. You got to go and get that thing straight right with them. And finally, in Romans chapter 12, verse 18, we read this. If it be possible, as much lies in you, be peaceful with all men. Now, notice, you got to do everything you can to live peaceful with all men, but that does not guarantee you that you will, if it be possible. Yeshua couldn't be at peace with all men. If he was, they would have crucified him. But he did everything he could, except he would not agree with them and go against the will of God. But he didn't do no wrong. He wasn't out there. He wasn't out there disturbing their peace, pranking them, doing any of that kind of stuff. He did everything he could to live in peacefully with them, but they would not have peace with him. And that can happen to you as well. You can only do what you can do, but you are told to do whatever that is. You need to do as much as you can to be at peace with other people. Because remember, what we're wanting here is we're wanting to live in unity, to dwell in unity. That's what a blessing is. We want that blessing of God on our life that makes our life so pleasant. So we want to strive to be at peace with people, and to win, and to win. And if we did someone wrong or just embarrassed them or something, to win them back over, and make as whatever effort we need to do it if it's possible. And again, it's not possible. Some people just decide they're offended. Maybe if they offended you and me, you have some justification. They're just determined to be offended. They're just going to hang on to that like it's their greatest treasure. All you can do is what you can do, but do what you can do. Now, we're going to look at a few more tips about how to get in those friendships we talked about earlier, those deep, meaningful friendships. We discussed some previous ones a little bit, like a friend loves at all times. And how's that begin? Well, in Proverbs chapter 18, verse 24, Shlomo, as Solomon tells us, a man that has friends must show himself friendly. And there's a friend that sticks closer to a brother. Okay, you can't have that friend that sticks closer to a brother. And of course, that friend that sticks closer to a brother ultimately is Yeshua. He'll never leave us nor forsake us. Okay? But how's it begin? If you're gonna have friends, you gotta show yourself friendly. If you're at some social gathering, you're off in the corner by yourself, got your arm, got a look on your face like, come near me and I'll kill you. You're not gonna make a lot of friends there. Okay. And, if you do draw someone to you like that, they're not really your friend. They're just they think you're a psychopath, and they are. They find that they're hoping you're a psychopath like them or something. Okay. You got to show yourself friendly, and then also you've got to watch your tone, keep your voice, keep talk to them with a friendly voice. Hey there, friend, like that, So you've got to control those things, okay? And you got to think about how you look, and some of it's cultural. What might be good in one culture might be offensive in another. And to the best of your knowledge, you need to consider that, and do what, and find out what a lot of things are just universal. So you got to show yourself friendly, and there's another aspect to that. You can't be. There was a couple of girls I knew for a long time being like, "Well, I don't have any friends," and they really kind of liked the other. They kind of liked each other, but they both were waiting for the other one to make the first move. I guess eventually someone did. One of them did, or because they eventually became friends, or a third party got involved somehow. Huh? You have to be the one to make the first move sometimes. You've got to go out there and talk to and go to that person you want to be friends with and show yourself friendly to them. That's the first step to getting that friend that sticks closer than a brother who will be with you through thick and thin. It'll never happen if you don't first show yourself friendly to someone. Now, in Proverbs 25, chapter 25, verse 17, we're gonna read about something you need to avoid doing so you don't lose your friends here. Withdraw your foot from your neighbor's house, lest he be wary of you and so hate you. Now, as we said where I grew up, don't wear out your welcome. Okay. I mean, you gotta go to their house, that's fine. But look, and some people just aren't gonna be honest with you, unfortunately. I mean, they should be. If you say, I think I need to, you think maybe if you think maybe you need to be going because you're wearing out your welcome. Sometimes the best thing to do is just go ahead and go, but it depends on the person. But so if you say something to them like, "Oh well wait, I can see you got stuff I need to do. I need to go home," and they know, and it's true, but they'll be like, "Oh no, you're no bother." They're not telling the truth. You are a bother. Okay, they should tell you the truth, but sometimes people don't. But they're wary of you, and what they'll eventually do is they'll start. You might come over and they just don't answer the doorbell or whatever, huh? Because you keep staying over there too long. So you want to keep that friends, you need to discern. And one of the best ways to do it's just set a time limit up front. Like, and if you can ahead of time, or if you can't, if it's impromptu, say to them, can you, can I, do you have 30 minutes or half an hour, whatever the case is, huh? And, myself, I'll actually get out my phone and set my timer because I can get talking and forget and lose track of time. And then when that time's up, you just leave. Okay. You just do what you said. And that'll build trust and they won't be wary of you. So, but don't be staying in their house and don't be keeping them in your house either, for that matter, if they come over longer than they need to be. Maybe they need to go. Maybe that hour went up and you still got stuff you'd like to say, but perhaps they got somewhere to go, and don't be offended. Just set up another time with them. This was great. Can we do this another time? Yeah, how about tomorrow or next week or whatever the case may be? Be specific. Now in Proverbs chapter 26, 17, verse 17, we read this. He that passes by and meddles with strife not belonging to him is like one that takes a dog by the ears. Okay, now we're going to start that last part. When dogs fight, they're not trying to kill each other. They're trying to establish dominance. And what they do is they grab the other dog's mouth and hold it shut. Okay? And the dog that holds the other dog's mouth shut won the fight. The other one will make some sign of submission, and the fight's over. And that's how these halties and things like that work with dogs, where you're walking along, and as long as the dog's doing what he's supposed to, he can open his mouth and blah, blah, blah. But say you're walking, he decides he's going to stop, and you just keep walking. It will close that dog's mouth, and the only room to open it is get up there next to you. Okay? Get up there where he's supposed to be, and that thing will release his mouth. Boy, if a dog's trying to do something with you, trying to hurt you, and if you can grab it by the mouth and hold it shut, that's a good idea. The dog can't hurt you. They can't really do much with their claws and stuff because they're small and whatever. And you pretty much got them at that point. But if you grab that dog by the ears, or just say it's not even a dog that's just sitting there, and you just grab by the ears, you're asking to get bent. Okay? And this thing not a dog that's vicious or anything, just a dog that's just sitting there and not mind its own business. You grab its ears. Its natural response is to turn its head and bite you. Well, that's what it's like if you're just walking along and several people are in an argument and you start listening to the side, you're going to take a side and you insert yourself in their argument. You're going to end up getting bit. Again, this is something you don't want to do. It's not conducive to peace and harmony with your neighbors. It's not conducive to that unity we're so willing with the blessing of God's upon us. We're blessed, and we're blessed with having a good time with the people around us, and everyone's at peace, and there's just love, peace, and hope, and and quiet, and unity, and harmony, and all that stuff. It's not now. So when it says metal again, doesn't mean you can't. Doesn't mean you can't be. Sometimes people can be a peacemaker, but sometimes you just gotta let people fight it out. Sometimes they're not going to come to peace. I don't care what you do. And if you try to insert yourself, that's like taking a dog by the ears too. I mean, literally standing between them sometimes. If that strife has nothing to do with you, and they do not, you may try to get them to come to some sort of peace, but you cannot get them to. Sometimes you just have to let them handle it themselves. Just walk on by and ignore them, or get them to take it outside if you're in a building and it's disrupting other people, and let them hash it out. But don't get involved in it. Now, lastly, we're going to talk about some things to do concerning kings. Remember, we saw earlier, don't strike princes to get even. Don't strike people in authority to get even, because you can cause all kinds of problems, not just for you, but for other people. Which is going to disrupt not just your peace and harmony, but your neighbors as well. And here's what Proverbs chapter 21, verse 1 says: "The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, as rivers of water. He turns it whithersoever he will." Now, some translations say channels of water, or channels of a canal. Okay, water in a canal, or an irrigation, like an irrigation ditch. If you've ever seen an irrigation ditch like this, where they got a system of ditches, they'll have gates, and you can lift up one gate, say that water's going straight. You can lift the gate to the side, water's flowing through it. You shut the gate in front, where I'll quit flowing that way, and you can move that water wherever you want to that system of irrigation ditches. Well, it's saying the king's heart is like that in the hands of the Lord. The Lord knows what motivates this guy. He can take care of things. He can get the problem resolved for you. The Lord can. Remember, waiting on the Lord. He can get that man. He can get that king to do whatever he wants. He can get him to do the right thing for the wrong reason, or a selfish reason, perhaps I should say, huh? So first thing is, when you're dealing with a ruler, someone authority over you, and the king in some places in the Middle East, they literally have kings. Okay, no higher authority anyways, except for God, right? Don't worry about it. Just bring it up to God and let God handle it. He can get justice done for you. Now, in Ecclesiastes 8, 1 through 5, chapter 8, verse 1 through 5, we read this: "Whoso is the wise man? Who knows the interpretation of things? A man's wisdom makes his face shine, and the boldness of his face shall be changed. I counsel you to keep the king's commandment, and in that regard, the oath of God. Oh, in regard to the oath of God. Be not hasty to go out of his sight. Stand not in an evil thing, for he does whatsoever pleases him. Where the word of the king is, there is power. And who may say to him, what are you doing? Whosoever keeps the commandment shall feel no evil thing. A wise man discerns both time and judgment." Okay, so if you remember that wise man, that whose wisdom is going to cause your face to shine, and and basically you're going to be glowing, you're going to be happy about the outcome. Well, it starts with keeping the king's commandment. And that in regard of the oath of God, the promise of God that he will take care of things, he'll handle things. But also remember, it doesn't mean keep the king's commandment. The king, God, is the highest authority. That king, like some of these Middle East nations, there's no authority above that king in the country. But God is king of the universe. He's over that king. Now you're gonna get him to do what he wants. He can take that king's breath away anytime he wants. Okay, but the king may give you a commandment that's contrary to the commandments of God, like the three Hebrew children with bowing down. And crazy Neb said, "Bow down to my statue," and they wouldn't do it. Or later when Cyrus, when some of the advisors got Cyrus to foolishly sign that decree, they regretted resigning about not praying. They wanted Daniel didn't do it. He didn't obey the king's commandment. There's a time for civil disobedience, but that time is basically boils down to when it's between obeying the king's commandment and obeying God's commandment. You should always pick God's commandment. But other than that, you need to be obeying the king's commandment. Now, this next part about do not be hasty to go out of his sight. If the king calls you there, wants to investigate something or whatever, or is trying to get to the bottom root, don't be trying to get out of there as quickly as possible. I mean, the king can interpret that for one thing. He can interpret that as you're guilty of something, you're hiding something, whatever. Don't be trying to get out of go out of his sight. Don't be ducking and hiding from him. Trying to avoid him, except he's gonna be, you're gonna make yourself look guilty. It's gonna be suspicious behavior at best. And do not stand in an evil thing. I mean, don't be like in that rebellion we talked about, part of it. Don't be doing something that's breaking the king's commandment that's evil. He can do whatever he pleases. Unless God intervenes, if he's like some of these kings in the Middle East, he can just, he can have your head or whatever, huh? Because no one can tell him what to do. No one can question him. What are you doing? He's not, these kings are not like a president who's limited by a constitution and stuff in these cases. There's a law that they should be following themselves often, but if they don't follow it, whoever you want to go to, he's the highest authority in the land with no checks and balances. So you don't want to get on his bad side, and if you don't feel some evil thing from the king, some sort of punishment, keep his commandments. And if there's something you need to say or whatever, you need to discern there's a right time and a right way to say anything, do anything. You need to be looking for that right opportunity. Think about Esther. Didn't come right out and didn't tell Ahasuerus what she want the first time when she came in the throne room, and contrary, the king extended his scepter, and she didn't just say, "Oh, Haman over there's up to no good," and he got you to sign a decree to kill all my people. Nope. She burned him up first. She invited him to a banquet of wine, which the guy was a drinker. If you read the whole story, and not even the first one that you tell him. She waited the second one. She got him in a good mood first. Probably being his wife, spent the night with him and did whatever he liked. I mean, she really buttered this pill to this guy, what this guy liked first. And then she brought it up. He discerned the time. I mean, the person you're dealing with, it may be a bad time. They may even say, if it's more a casual relationship, like it's your boss. Can we talk about this later? It's a bad time for me. your answer needs to be yes. Okay. And if they tell you that, that's really a clue. And you need to be judgment. You need to be careful on how you say it. Remember Esther, how she did it, how she went about it. Got him in a good mood first, and waited for the right time, and then brought it up. Huh? And in Proverbs and Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 4, we read our final verse here about again having wisdom with people. If the spirit of the ruler rise up against you, leave not your place, for yielding pacifies great offenses. Okay, I mean, you can see the king's getting angry at you or something like that. I mean, just or I mean, you can tell he's not happy with you. Worst thing you can do, absolute worst thing you can do, and it's true to your boss, whoever else too. Anyone in authority, worst thing you can do is turn your back and walk off. I mean, anyone who's in authority, well, that is so disrespectful to them. The king sets the time when you can come. You have to get an audience with him, and the king decide, and it's not, and you're not to leave till he says it's time for you to leave. You don't want to make this a fight about who's in control, and that's exactly what you do when you're someone in authority over you. And I'm even talking about a wife with her husband. And you see if they're starting to get upset with you or whatever, particularly if you've done wrong. We'll get to that in a moment. And you walk off, just walk away from them. You are being very rude and disrespectful to them, and you're trying to show that you're the one. You're trying to take control of when it's over, instead of letting them say, "Now we're done." You're going to make things much worse for you. Don't do that. What you do want to do instead is this. You may have done them wrong and did great wrongs to them. But by yielding, and what's that mean? Acknowledging you're wrong if you did wrong. Acknowledging you're wrong. Saying, you're right, King. I shouldn't have done that. It was foolish of me, except. Please have mercy on me. Kings, if they're wise at all, want to be seen as magnanimous. They want to be seen as merciful. Remember that's a great glory to them we talked about earlier. So if you yield to them, they start rising up with you and saying, "You're right. I did wrong. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that." Show genuine sorrow and show and express real repentance. And even if you've offended them even if you've committed great offenses, you can find that you'll get mercy because they want to be seen as merciful. And there was an example of this. There was a guy in Britain who rose up against the Romans in Britain, led a rebellion against him. He got crushed. He got hauled off to Rome. and he got hauled off to Rome, put in a trial before the Roman Senate with the emperor there. And his whole defense was, "I did wrong." And the appeal, it talks about how merciful and magnanimous the emperor was, and so on and so forth. How gracious he was, and he should have treated someone that was so gracious the way he did and accept. And they didn't punish. They were basically meeting there to figure out what terrible way they were going to kill him. Okay, that's what they were really doing. Okay, but the Roman law required he got to speak for himself, so let him have his speak. And what he does, he acknowledges his wrong, and he expresses how merciful the king, the emperor is. how magnificent and what gracious he is. And the king and the emperor responded to that because now that guy has told them, and the emperor wants to show the guy right. So nothing happened to him. He didn't get killed. In fact, they put him up. He couldn't leave Rome. They put him up in a nice villa in Rome, and in the palace. In fact, near the palace, or in the palace, I think it was near the palace, so they could keep an eye on him, basically. And he lived the rest of his lives in great luxury instead of instead of facing some sort of brutal death for his rebellion. So don't try, if you've done wrong and you're dealing with anyone that's over you in authority, don't try to defend yourself. Don't try to justify the wrong you've done. You want peace and harmony with them, do what the Bible says we're to do with God. Confess our sins and turn from them, and we'll be forgiven. And it's generally true of most rulers because they want to look gracious. That's all I've got for this week. Until next week, shalom.